What's up, y'all, and welcome to Guardian Chronicles Let's Talk Live. It is our first Tuesday show. So we're going to see if you guys like Tuesdays, because that's what you guys were telling me. I was listening. Tonight's show is going to be awesome, or shall I say, this evening's show. We have Dr. Julia Ann Miller. She is so awesome, guys. She's an author, a writing professor, and she is a bipolar advocate. And we're going to discuss her journey tonight from an adolescent to adulthood, to her journey of depression, her journey of finding out she had bipolar and what that felt like and how she navigated it, and how she went through her trials, her tribulations, and her triumph to the doctor that she is today. So it's going to be a great show. Please share this with someone that you may know that needs that inspiration, that needs that love, that encouragement, because that's what we're going to give tonight, okay? All right. And she is on here. Hey, y'all. Hey. Let me go ahead and add you on here, Dr. Miller. One moment. Let me bag up out the camera. Okay. She'll be on here shortly, guys.
Hi
Hi.
there.
How are you, Dr. Miller?
I am doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. Looking beautiful as always.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Well, we're going to jump right on in. I did the intro already. So we're going to start off with when you were an adolescent and you were 10 years old. What did 10 years old look like for you?
Well, it was not an easy childhood. My mother had bipolar 1, and at the time it was called manic depressive illness. And she was in the hospital from the time I was 7 until I was 11. And my father was our caretaker. I have a sister who's 18 months older than me, and he's an alcoholic or was an alcoholic. So it made it a little difficult to navigate life. So what happened was at one point, I stopped doing well in school. I had been a really good student, and suddenly I stopped performing. And then I developed this horrible stomach ache, and it was very painful. And I was taken to the doctor, and the doctor put me in the hospital. Now, very quickly, they discovered I had an ulcer as a young child.
Yeah, it's a
But
baby. You're young.
yeah, but they hung on to me for a week because they knew that I was depressed as well. And once I was released, I was sent to see a psychiatrist, and he diagnosed me with pre-adolescent depression. And at the time, I wasn't medicated at all, I think because I was so young. And I went to a couple of counseling sessions, but there was no one to really get me there and to make sure that I followed through with no, responsible adult around.
Right. You know, when I hear that story, I feel like at 10 years old, dealing with something so traumatic and you're just a child, and then having your father help navigate through his substance use, it's like, I really applaud you. I applaud you for even where you are right now. It's just like, wow, I do want for people that have children that they feel like, you know what? I feel like my child isn't his or her best right now. They feel like maybe their child may be going through a form of depression. You did bring up that, you were having some difficulties in school, which was a sign. Were there any other signs? I know you were having the stomach concern. Was there any other signs that maybe parents could look for?
I was very withdrawn. I didn't want to play with my friends. Now, people who know me now know that I'm an introvert, but as a young child, I was not. But I stopped playing with my friends, and this is going to sound strange, but I spent so much time in my closet. And so I was very withdrawn. And if you watch for signs like that with your child, they don't want to play with friends anymore. They might really be isolating themselves. they stop performing in school, they stop performing in sports, whatever their thing is, they just stop.
Right. Right. I feel like, too, just to piggyback on that, I think that some parents will say, oh, well, my child is just an introvert, and that's just how he or she is. Like, I have friends like that, and they're like, oh, my child, that's just how they are. So I do think that it could be that's just how they are, but it doesn't hurt to like dig into that.
Right,
Okay.
right. I
Now, if we fast forward a bit, after you had that diagnosis of depression, what did life look like from 10 to 15 years old?
Well, it went pretty much the same way. My mother got out of the hospital at when I was 11, and she did not function well. She was not someone who bounced back after a long psychiatric hospitalization. She remained very unstable and did not take medication, and it was just chaos. And then when I was 16, she disappeared, and she was gone for months. We didn't know where she was. And I was left with my father, who kicked me out of the house. So, I mean, that was difficult because I had to find places to live. And I did. There were kind people all over the place. So I was in a neighborhood in Cincinnati that is not known as a good neighborhood, but the people there were so kind and took me in.
Wow. Oh my God, that's beautiful. And that really goes to show that we need a village. It takes a village, right? It's like
Absolutely.
I know so many people that sometimes they don't want to include other people into what's going on in their private life, but because of these types of situations, it's really important. It makes me go back to when even I was a child, and my mom has bipolar schizophrenia and my aunt as well. And I remember my mom would go in and out of mental health institutions and things. And here comes the village. Here's my grandfather. Here's my uncle. We even had the neighbors, like you said, in the neighborhood. Like they'll be like, oh, Christina, come over to the house, come hang with us. We'll cook you a meal and all this. Because my grandfather was an alcoholic. We had that in common with your father and my grandfather. But my grandfather was like my dad. So I used to call
Yeah.
him dad. And he took care of me when my mom was in and out of the hospital. So I 100% relate to you. And I think that there are children out here who see that too, and we don't get the therapy that we need. To see your mom go in and out of hospitals and for her not to take her medications and what her psychosis may have looked like with you just being a child. Kids need therapy for that. It's trying to figure out how to process. Like, how were you able to process seeing your mom go in and out of mental health institutions and not necessarily be present for you the way you needed her to be without her part at all?
I wrote. I would write stories, and I just wrote. I've always been a writer, and that's what I did. I read encyclopedias and I wrote.
Oh, you were smart.
Well, it was just what interested me, and it was taking me out of my everyday world and somewhere entirely different. And it was a healthy way, I think, to deal with it. And it worked for me.
Okay. Do you still have those writings? Like,
No, I don't. I wish I did because, like I said, I went out on my own basically as a teenager, and I couldn't really take much with me.
okay. Okay. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Thanks. It was so long ago. Yeah.
Well, when you did go out on your own, what did life look like for you?
Well, I decided that at 17, I decided I wanted to be a mother. I decided that since I didn't have a family, and I'll qualify that, I had my sister. I always had my sister as an option, but I decided I wanted to be a mother. So I got pregnant at 17 and had my daughter at 18. And that put me into my 20s, growing up with a child who was also growing up. And the 20s were, I realize in retrospect that I was cycling in and out of a mild depression and hypomania, which is a lot of energy, you get a lot done. You're in a really happy mood and very social, but you're not at mania, which gets, is devastating when it's in full swing. So I was cycling in and out. I went to college, I went to graduate school and got a master's degree. And Ashley, my daughter, kind of rode along with me. And so that was my 20s.
Okay. And when you started to notice that you were going through the hypomania, what was your next step? Did you say, well, let me go and get therapy, or I'm not going to even bother with it? I'll just see what happens.
It's interesting because I had no idea that that was what was going on because I didn't know I had bipolar disorder yet. But I just know that I was productive and then I was down. Then I was productive and then I was down. And it was hard to function when I was down. And it was easy to function when I was up. But I did have during that time 3 major depressions that were very difficult and lasted, several months each. And those were tough to deal with. And I did go to therapy during those times. I knew that I needed to seek that out, and I did. And fortunately, at that time, there were a lot of resources available that weren't very expensive that I could go to and still afford as a young mother with a child and a student at the same time.
Okay, now during those times, for someone that may be going through hypomania or not even knowing, they're just having these high highs and low lows. What did that depression look like during those 3 months without sharing too much that only what you feel comfortable?
Right. All I can say is they were black, dark. Nothing had any color or any light. It was hard to think. It was hard to get up. I slept a lot. I stayed in bed a lot. And I had my daughter, she would climb into bed with me and we'd read something and I'd try to, stay up for her as much as I could. But on my own, it was just, I couldn't really function at
Yeah.
all. I mean, I couldn't talk to anyone. I couldn't talk on the phone. I barely made it to school and sometimes I didn't. It hit a couple of times on my break from school. And I have to wonder if, once I took away all the activity, to fill up my brain, suddenly I crash when it's not there. So,
Wow. So you kept yourself busy so that you wouldn't necessarily focus on the darkness.
yes, yes. But
And
when
then, I'm sorry.
but when I went to graduate school at the end of my 20s and I moved to New York to do that, and I was completely alone. I loved being in school. I loved working in graduate school. I loved teaching. I was teaching undergraduate philosophy, and that really fed me. But I would go home and just crash. I had no feelings. I would struggle to write my papers, and I had to count on those times when I was a little hypomanic to write, and get all my work done like in one fell swoop, write for 3 days, if I had to, and get everything done so I could go back to being, depressed.
Oh my
Not
God.
like I wanted to, but, I just kept getting pulled down.
Well, you were Superwoman at the same time. So you were going through the hypomania, but you were Superwoman. You were working it out. You were like, okay, this is dark, but I still got to get through. I still got to get through this program. This is dark. I
Mhm.
mean, wow, how did you do, Dr. Miller? You're amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I did it because I had to do it, and I think everybody pretty much lives that way. You get handed different things, and
Right.
everybody gets handed something tough to deal with, and everybody just makes it the best they can.
That's
That's all
true.
I was doing. So
That's true. Now, during this time, just in case our audience is wondering, where was your father and your mother?
my mother was missing during that time. I don't know where she was. She did, like I said, she just disappeared for months at a time. And so she was missing during that time. I didn't Gosh, I didn't talk to her or see her for like 15 years until I turned 40. And I had to track her down and find her because she was paranoid and she hid all the time. So it was hard to find her. And yeah, so that was my mom. My dad was drinking, he was drinking. That
Okay,
was his life. Yeah.
okay. So it was just you and your daughter.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now, during this time, I know at the age of 15, you were diagnosed with major depressive disorder, right?
Yes.
During that time, were you on medications or was it in your 20s?
Actually, I did get a medication at that time, antidepressant called amitriptyline, and I took it for a very brief amount of time because, again, there was no adult there to, refill the prescriptions, to pay for the prescriptions, to make sure, that I took them. There
Mhm.
was no one there as a support person, and so I wasn't really able to get the full benefits of that. So really, I just engaged in risky behavior, ran around with the bad kids or the wrong crowd, and I just survived that way. I was out on my own very, shortly after, and I just made it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, you did. You definitely did. Now, when you were in your 20s, and let's fast forward back to where we were, and you were going through the dark places and you were getting to the light because you were going to graduate, during that time, did you have any hospitalizations at all? Any?
Mm, I
Okay.
did not. I went to therapy, and it was interesting because I took a bus, and it took two buses to get to a place where I could go to therapy that I could afford. So I did that, and I was really committed to doing that, and I would study on the bus on my way there. And I went to therapy. I fought as hard as I could, to stay stable. It was very difficult. And again, at that point, I didn't know I had bipolar disorder. I just knew that I could work, really hard, really fast, and accomplished a lot, in a short amount of time. And then when
Right.
I wasn't doing that, I was flat out, depressed. So I was cycling, you
Oh
know.
my gosh. So, when was that moment when you got your diagnosis of bipolar disorder? At what age?
That was 40. The year I turned 40, I had no idea the whole world was going to change for me. I was going along and doing well. I was still cycling, depressed here and hypomanic there. But when I was hypomanic, I was very productive at work. I was doing really well. And I started having these weird symptoms. One time I looked up from where I was sitting, and it was at work, and my boss had no nose. And I looked around at other people, and none of the other people had noses either. And other visual things that were really strange were happening. So I went to a neurologist, and he said that he thought I had acephalgic migraine, which is migraine without head pain. So you don't have the headache, but you have all the auras that go with it. And he thought what would be most helpful would be to prescribe an antidepressant called Celexa and to see if that would help me with it. So I took Celexa, and it helped a little bit. And so I went back, and he said, well, let's increase it a little and see if it works better. So he increased it a little, and then it did work a little better. And then the last time I went back, he increased it again. And I was happy. I was moving fast. Everything was good. I was really happy. I was doing well at work. I was traveling, for work, flying all over the country, doing things. And I was just up, up, up because the antidepressant was pushing me up, up, up.
Yes.
And it eventually I just shot through the ceiling became manic because my chemistry did not want an antidepressant by itself. No one who has bipolar can take an antidepressant by itself. They have to have a mood stabilizer so that you don't go up too far. And I didn't have a mood stabilizer because no one knew that I was bipolar yet.
Oh, wow. Isn't that something? Because I feel like people don't really talk about that as much, that you need a mood stabilizer along with the antidepressant. Like, I hear the same thing over and over. Oh, if a person is living with bipolar, or if it's depression or manic depression, you just have antidepressant and that's it. You don't
Yeah.
really hear about the mood stabilizers except for every now and then. I know with my mom and aunt, sometimes they would throw one in, but that's
Mhm.
really important for our audience to know, so that just in case they are on one, it doesn't shoot them through the roof, like you said.
Right. Hmm.
Now, what did it look like when things calmed down and you got that additional stabilizer, that mood
Well,
stabilizer?
I I ended up in the hospital because I was all over the map. I was very, um, when you get manic, a lot of times you think things that aren't true and believe things that aren't real. And then you reach a point where you think, well, which thing is, I know something's not right, because these are contradictory things, but you don't know which one's right and which one's wrong. So I ended up in the hospital after some crazy escapades. And I was there for 9 days. And during that time, the psychiatrist who was there immediately diagnosed me as having bipolar 1 and started with the medications. And after 9 days, I had enough stability and enough medication in me that I could go home. And so I went home, and, it was hard to adjust. And 2 days later, I went back in the hospital for another week. It
Oh,
was just really, really tough to get stabilized. But that's where I started my medication journey. And I'm still taking some of the medications that I was taking back then.
okay. And
Mhm.
you're 15 years on your medications, right?
I was doing the math today, and it's actually 20 years.
Oh, that's
I know,
awesome.
because I think I've been saying 15 years for a while now, but it's actually 20 years
That
um,
is awesome.
since I got stabilized. Okay, so I had 2 years where the doctor and I had to experiment. If is this drug going to work? Is that drug going to work? With
Hmm.
all the different symptoms that I had, to try to address those. The first one that was brought in was lithium, which is kind of the bulldozer, and it's the tried and true. If you're
Yeah.
really, really manic, that's really the only thing that's going to work in a lot of cases. So I took lithium for 10 years. And then I also took another mood stabilizer and an antipsychotic and an antidepressant and a sleep med and an anti-anxiety. It's when
Jesus.
you have bipolar 1, there's just so much involved in remaining stable. So I
Right.
still take a whole bunch of meds. I still take 4 psych meds every day.
Okay. Well, that's not too bad. My mom takes like, probably like five or six or something like.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and then it started to dwindle, and then it kind of increased again. So yeah.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I do want to go back to where you said you were there for 9 days inpatient, and then for a moment it was hard trying to adjust to this new life, and you ended up going back.
Hmm.
For our audience that are having maybe a same or similar condition or situation, what made it hard to adjust? I think I know the answer, but I'd rather hear it from you.
The world didn't feel as safe. In the hospital, at least, there were those safe, um, there were 4 walls that locked,
Oh,
and you couldn't just leave. You couldn't get out and hurt yourself. And
mhm.
that's always a risk with, serious depression. So once you're locked inside, they can work with you to try to get you stabilized. But it starts to feel safe because you're not allowed to think about work or do work. You can think about your family and talk about your family, but nobody else. You have to just really focus on the people in your life and in what's important in your life, and everything else goes away. Everything else ceases to be important. And so I got used to that. And the doctor coming every day and helping me, sort through what was going on in my head and what was real and what wasn't real. And then I went home, and it just all went away. There was no safety anymore mentally, and I was in a terrible marriage too. So I came out of the hospital, and it was like I had no adult support, and I had two little boys by that time, and they were an absolute joy and got me through a lot of things just by existing. But, I went home to this terrible marriage, and it wasn't going to help me heal at all. And I knew it, and I was afraid. I did not want to go back to a place where I didn't even know what was really real.
Wow.
And so I went back. And then, after that additional week, I did feel a little stronger and I felt like I could come out. And I had my therapist who I went to see, every single day I was in therapy. And then I finally worked down to 5 days and then 4 days and 3 days. But that was over the course of 2 years while my medication was getting stabilized completely. And I kind of lived at the hospital. I did my inpatient or my intensive outpatient program at that hospital. I did my therapy at that hospital. It was my home away from home.
You know what? I applaud you for being receptive to the treatment because I find a lot of times it may be challenging. It may, like you said, it may be you'd feel like, do I have a safe space? And then going home to your husband, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Like, it's like, where is the recovery? Like, the recovery was only at the hospital. That was like your
Mhm.
family, and of course the children, but it was just like the adults were the doctor, the nurses,
Mhm.
the care team. And, now for people that may be afraid of the inpatient life, there are some people that I have interviewed and some people I've spoken to that they're like, I'm afraid to go inpatient. They've heard horror stories. Yours has been amazing. Mine with my mom and aunt, predominantly positive. I've had bad experiences, but predominantly, yes, positive. So, what would you say to someone that's like, I don't know about going inpatient again, if they know that they need to go and they just feel like, I don't know.
Give it a try. Because in all likelihood, if you get in there and it's not working for you, if you really can't receive care there, they're going to do a 72-hour turnaround. When they come in, they assess you, they try to find meds for you. And if you're in a place where it's not helping you, they're not going to like lock you in a room somewhere. But if you're open to it, there's so much care that can happen there. There's so much camaraderie that you develop with the other patients who are from like everywhere in the world in terms of income, just everything. Everyone's very different, but you get to know each other and you start to see yourself in the other patients. And it helps you because everyone's so different. It helps you to see parts of yourself that you wouldn't normally see out in the real world. And there's something about the routine too that makes it very safe. So I guess I would say give it a try. Try not to be afraid of it because in most cases, psychiatric care is excellent these days, and hospitals are a good place to try to heal.
Yes, I totally agree. And then once you got your outpatient treatment, what did outpatient treatment look like for you?
Um, the intensive outpatient program I went to for 5 hours per day, 4 days per week. And I did that, I think, for about 3 weeks. And then after that, I stepped down to therapy 5 days a week. And, or every day, and then 5 days a week, and then, down to 4, 3, 2, 1. And that took 2 years. And the only reason I stopped with that therapist is because they stopped taking Medicare and I was on disability at that point, and I had Medicare, and they stopped taking it.
Okay.
I
Now,
lost my therapist.
and don't you hate when that happens? Like,
Yeah.
I lost my therapist that way too one time when they stopped taking the insurance, but you were able to get the therapist back.
Not her.
Okay, but someone else.
Yeah, someone else. Yeah.
Okay. Now, during this time, did you already graduate with your graduate degree and your PhD?
No, I actually waited to get my PhD because life was so chaotic and there was so much going on, and I was dealing with having bipolar disorder and getting accustomed to the fact that it's an everyday thing, even if you're stable. So I waited until I was older and my kids were out of the house, and I ended up defending my doctoral dissertation on my 60th birthday. That was my birthday present to myself. Yeah, yeah.
That is awesome. You know, question. I know we didn't talk about this, but now I'm curious. Did you let people know when you did graduate with your PhD, like, yeah, and I'm living with bipolar. Ha, I did it. I did that. Did people know?
By the end of the program, people knew, and I wrote my dissertation on bipolar disorder and
Okay.
memoir and creativity. So my whole doctoral work ended up being about bipolar. And um, the first time I really said that I had bipolar to my committee, I was like so intense and, all worried about it. And I'm like, I've got to tell them eventually. I've got to tell them. And finally I did. And we were on a Zoom call. And everybody was just, oh, well, that's wonderful. It makes your work so much more relevant and so much
Right.
more important. And, here I was expecting, the ground to open up and I was going to fall in. And, there was no earthquake, there weren't even any little tremors. They
Yeah.
were just there, loving and supportive and, happy that I had something special that I was able to do to help heal and to help others heal as well.
Okay, that's awesome. See, that's why I asked because I bet the committee thought like, wow, when she wrote this like profound thesis and it was, I bet you they were thinking like, is this from personal experience? Is this from friends or family? So I think it was very honorable and very like, oh my God, I would have felt so empowered if I were you to be able to go to the committee and just say, hey, this is me and this is why my dissertation was about this. That is just beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you. I thought so.
Now,
It's,
I do want to navigate to because this is when life starts to really turn. Now you have your PhD, and what is love looking like at that time? Were you still married? Were you divorced? What was your life looking like?
oh, I was divorced in 2013. And by the time I got my doctorate, I'm with my partner, who I have now. I was with him at the same time. We've known each other for 30, 35 years, but we've been partners for 10 years. And he was along with me in that whole process of working on my dissertation and doing that work and supporting me and being there with my everyday bipolar. And I haven't had episodes. I've had some very mild depressions. And I work with my medication person every 3 months. We meet and we talk, and she does the medication management, and we'll tweak meds here and there. But my everyday support, has been my partner. And I think I told you the medication story where, I asked him early on, to ask me if I've taken my medication every
Yeah.
day. And he does. If he doesn't see the little thing flipped up that says I took
Wow.
my medication, he asks. And I think I shared with you that some days, if I'm feeling a little irritable, and it's a bipolar irritation. I can feel it. It feels different. And he'll ask, "Did you take your medication today?" And I'll be like, I am being controlled. I am being treated like a child. I mean, never mind that I asked, please make sure that I take my medication every morning.
Really?
And then I know, I go off on my little thing in my head, and, it doesn't take me long to come back down and realize, all right, this is something we do together. We manage my medication every day.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you just moved on to the area that I was getting to. You were ahead of me. how does that look like for a partner that's supporting someone that's living with bipolar? It's their partner. They love them dearly. They want to be able to do the best that they can to support them. That was a great example of what to do. What else does your partner do that you feel like, you know what? Other people could benefit from this because it helps me.
I think he has the ability to recognize that he can't fix me. And that's really important when you have, I think, any major mental illness, um, to not feel like people are trying to fix you and make you, be something that you're not.
Mhm.
And he takes care of himself, which is very important. I think any caregiver needs to do that, or any support person.
Mhm.
Um, he's very social. He's very extroverted. I am not at all social. I'm, not at all extroverted. And so he finds ways to meet his own social needs. He goes out every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. for breakfast to the same restaurant every week, and he knows the people there. It's a social group. He goes and does that. He's meeting his own social needs that he recognizes I can't meet. And it's not just that I don't want to. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do this or that. It's that I really can't on some level. So just being accepted that way. So to be accepting, but to not try to fix the person, but also to take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. Have your own therapist if that's what you need. Have activities that you do that feed you, um, and that are about you. Things are allowed to just be about you. They don't all have to be about the person who has a mental illness. It feels that way sometimes, I'm sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
That's true. I agree. Let's see. It says we have Nurse Me J. Oh, that's my best friend. She says that's so important that he not only looks out for you, but himself. I'm glad you all have each other. Aw.
thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's beautiful because having that support system not only it helps keep you on track, but it gives you that love that you need. And then you give that love to each other. Like that's
Mhm.
you can't beat it. That's beautiful. Now you are an author.
Yes, I am. I am right. I've published poetry and creative nonfiction in a number of anthologies and journals, but now I'm writing a book, and it, of course, is about bipolar, and it's for people who have bipolar. It's written toward them and for them rather than to family members, because there are a lot of books out there about, family members and how to provide support. There are a lot of memoirs out there of people who have bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm writing something different. It's about rewriting your personal narrative in a way that's empowering to you, and how you can claim the parts of bipolar that give you strength and work through the parts that don't give you strength, that, hurt you.
Wow. I love it. I love it because I think it's more personable versus just a book or a memoir. I think a lot of us we like to read things that we can relate to. So that's going to be an amazing book. I already know. Now, when is it scheduled to be released, or is it a secret?
Well, it's not scheduled to be released yet. I'm still writing, and I'm about probably 2 months away from sending out the proposals to publishers. So no publishers have seen it yet, but in the next couple of months, I'll be at that point where I'll be ready to send it out. I have 12 chapters written, and now I'm going through and editing them and editing them. I think I'm on like the sixth pass on chapter one. In chapter two, I'm on like the fifth pass. And, I just keep writing and rewriting and trying to make it more relevant
Right.
and make more, more sense to the people who will be reading it.
Okay. And then what about your past memoirs and your past work? How can people get that work?
Well, it's online. There's online access. I guess I could post some links in my bio, and that's really not a bad idea. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it before.
You should.
Other than I'm introverted. And
That's okay. I think you should though, because especially after this interview, I think people already wanted to know more about you with your own platform, but then also us speaking in this conversation today, I'm sure, people are like, eyes are just open, like, I want to know more about this wonderful woman. Now, we do have another comment. We have Mick. How exciting. Gonna follow you so I can snag it when it comes out.
Glad to hear that.
Now, you're a writing professor as well. What does that look like?
I teach memoir writing at a
Okay.
local university, and I teach every other semester. I don't want to teach every semester, so I teach one class every other semester in a program called Institute for Learning and Retirement. So my students right now are primarily seniors. So I even had a student who was 95 last semester, and the stories they tell them, because they're writing about their lives, and the stories they tell and the perspectives and all the different generations, and they're wonderful. They're so rich. And that's what I'm doing primarily in terms of teaching right now.
Okay, that is great. Now, is it possible for someone that's watching to be able to join that course at all, or?
Yes, they have to be 55 or older, but it's virtual. I always do my classes virtually since COVID. I just think it's a great, format to use. It's hard, particularly with older people, to get around to a lot of different places. And so we're all at our desks, and at our computers, and that's where we do our work.
Okay, so 55 and over, and then they can go to your profile, click the link. Will it be there for them to be able to register?
Sure, I could do that. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Now we are at the conclusion of the show, but before we end, what are some words of encouragement that you could give to someone that's living with bipolar and they just need that extra push to get them through their dark spaces into the light?
It doesn't last forever. Depression doesn't. It feels like it's going to. It feels like every 10 minutes is a lifetime sometimes, but it doesn't last forever. Take your meds. Always, I would never encourage anyone to not take medication. Um, like I said, I still take 4 every day, and it allows me to do things that there is no way in the world I would be able to do otherwise. Seek support. Hopefully, you have loved ones or friends, but if not, find a therapist. There is so much available now. Um, More than was available, even 10 years ago. There are plenty of places to get therapy that aren't expensive. Do things for yourself, get your pedicure, get your nails done, do your thing, and all those things that make you feel better. And if you find something that makes you feel whole and gives you joy, pursue it. I mean, no matter what, pursue it, even if it's a little bit. Um, that kind of thing really, really will keep you healthy.
Well said. Well said. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for coming on to the show today, sharing your story, your journey, your trials, your tribulations, your triumphs. You are really, oh my God, just breathtaking.
Thank
you're,
you.
I mean, you're easy on the eye.
You're sweet. You're very sweet.
And then it's like you've had such an inspiring journey. So, people like myself, as well as those who are watching, I'm sure now we can all feel like, whether you're living with bipolar or not, it makes you feel like, wow, I'm not the only one that goes through things and that I can overcome it. She did it. I can do it too, And that's one of the reasons why I have this platform, because I feel like whether we're living with whatever it is mental health condition that we're discussing or not, you can always be inspired. You can always be, you can look at a person and say, wow, I thought things were just the end. And now this person is saying they done did this, and this, and this, and this. It's not as bad. Let me put on my superhero cape. Let me go out here. and turn that darkness into light.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, even for myself, like I was telling you during the pre show, that I do have stress and depression sometimes myself. And I will do these shows sometimes, like before the show. Oh my God, I could have been having such a stressful day or going through a form of depression. And the moment I start the 3, 2, 1 and it hit live and
Hmm.
I talk to you guys, which are like my virtual family, it's like it empowers me. You
Hmm.
know, you're empowering me. And I think that we having our platforms the way that we do, Dr. Miller, like it's so many people that may be able to say, wow, they did it. I'm going to do it too. I'm not going to give up, you know?
I hope so. Yeah.
Me too. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Guardian Chronicles Let's Talk Live. And thank you again, Dr. Miller.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right, guys. See you next week, same time. Have a good evening. Have a good evening, Dr. Miller.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.